Hello and welcome everybody to the Beau Rivage Palace Hotel in Lausanne, Switzerland. Today is a very special press conference, and we're going to be hearing of the latest developments within the International Boxing Association, AIBA. My name is Matthew Layton, and my job is to make sure that everything runs smoothly. I'd like to first of all thank you all, the public listening in online. I'd like to thank the journalists and all the other representatives for taking the time to come here today. We do have a very distinguished panel that I'm going to introduce in a minute. For those of you listening online, and I do believe we have people listening in from all over the world, if you go on your screen and go down to the bottom, there's an interpretation button. So you go to the Zoom menu for translations. And we are translating from Russian into many, many different languages. The reason will become apparent very, very quickly. So I'd just like to briefly introduce the guests that we have on the top panel. First of all, the president of AIBA, Umar Kremlev. Roy Jones Jr., multiple four-weight class professional world champion. Professor Ulrich Huss, who's an independent governance expert. Zainer Nassar, a German boxing champion. The Secretary General of AIBA, Istvan Kovac, Coco, twice AIBA world champion and also world champion in professional boxing. And Roberto Camarelli, twice AIBA world champion. Along with the 6 guests that we have in front of us today, we'll also be going across a little bit later to Professor Richard McLaren, who's going to be joining us from Canada. He's a leading independent sports lawyer, as well as a recorded message, which was recorded a few minutes ago, by Mary Kom, who is the legendary boxer and 6 times AIBA world champion. We're going to start today by having a discussion between us. It's going to be quite rapid fire. And then after about 30-35 minutes, we're going to hand over to questions. Those are going to be questions from the media here and also the media online. So once again, thank you very much. I hope you have some wonderful questions prepared for us all. And I'd like to start by offering the floor to Mr. President. Sorry, just one more thing before I do that. If you're here in the actual venue, unless you speak every language, which I clearly don't, you need to have your little translation button. And it does give you instructions. Say it's 1, which is on the right-hand side for English, 2 for French, and 3 for Russian.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all those who are present here together with us in Lausanne. Thank you again and one more time to our online participants. All this shows that participants in today's event are those who are interested, who care about boxing. You know that for me, I used to be a boxer. It's not something new for me. It's my love. It's a hobby. It's not my job. Still, this is the centerpiece for me. All my life, I have invested it into boxing personally. The most important thing for today, we can say that the 6 months of our work, so basically that's why we're here, to present our reports, to talk about our results, but To begin with, I would like to say that AIBA, as I promised to all boxers, that will get transparent rules. So I would like to thank our boxing family for believing into me, giving me the necessary powers. So we are an autonomous body, and you can see here normally the president speaks. We will do differently. We will have not only president but boxers, referees, trainers. These guys know what changes are to be effected. Unfortunately, we have a bad heritage, which is true. So our past is not, how to put it mildly, not that good. But we have to do away with it, working together with our confederations and national federations. So only we can say what refereeing is about. Of course, we all understand, every functionary in our field must understand. They are here not to govern the box. I am not here to govern the boxers. I am here to help, to assist. My job is to help, to set up conditions, the environment, and every functionary in our field must understand, you are here to serve the boxers, me included. We all know that what happened before us, it was a major, let's put it bluntly, crime. But we are not only doing away with our past, we have our vision, we have serious, tangible results. What is important that all the boxing families behind us, we are working together. You have heard lots of time, we will be guarantors of fair refereeing. I think that my colleague and the family, AIB family member, will talk to us about what being a referee is about. These guys knows more than anybody else about it.
Thank you very much for your initial words from Mr. President. There is injustice and there has been major challenges in the past. And I think Roy Jones Jr. probably knows more about this than anyone here today. If we have a little look back into the history of boxing, 1988 Seoul Olympic Games, light middleweight final, and Park Si-hun was awarded the victory, which even he claimed wasn't fair. So I'd like to ask Roy Jones Jr., it's now 33 years ago, but I suggest that injustice still sits with you and you'd like to be part of the solution to put it right.
Yes, I definitely like to be part of that solution. First, I want to start by saying I'm very happy to be here. And as some of you know, I've had some fights in Seoul, Korea, but it still feels like it was yesterday. To see the opposition's hands raised by judges that were crooked and to see him get the decision and nothing to be done about it was a really heart-wrenching situation for me. I never will forget that feeling that I had that day when they raised the Korean's hand over mine. So for me to be back and to be a part of AIBA in a situation with my friend Umar here, helping out to right the wrongs in boxing is a big step. It says a lot about AIBA, it says a lot about everybody, because to have a wrong and unjust done and to not fix it. It's like I'm still alive. I'm still right here. Why can't we fix it? I earned a gold medal that night in Seoul, Korea in 1988. Now, for other reasons, it could have happened because of the motivation it fueled in me to go ahead and become a better, even professional than I may have become. But the fact still remains the same. The judges were crooked, they were banned, and I'm sure they're not the only judges that were like that, because I understood that the Canadian may have gotten a bad decision before me, the Italian may have gotten a bad decision before me, and I'm sure they all had even different judges. So it wasn't just that one group that got me that was bad, it was a big group of them. But if we don't do things right now, like step in people from the outside of boxing, step in and start trying to fix these things, then the integrity of the sport will just continue to decrease. The integrity has gone down so much since that time, and I don't want to blame it on just that one event, but that's definitely a big start of why a person wouldn't want to look at going to the Olympics or feel like they would get treated very unfairly if they did go to the Olympics. So for me, to see us coming here now and to be a part of a team that can go out and help fix the situation, to help resolve, so that boxers know when they step in the ring, they don't have to worry about the guy that got the white t-shirt on. They don't have to worry about the guys that are placed around the ring to watch the fight. They know that all of these people are put there to give them a fair decision, give them fair justice, and make sure everything is done properly. That is what inspired me to want to go to the Olympics, because I feel like on the world stage, if it's anywhere people can be fair at, it's on a world stage. That's why the Olympics was so big. That was the biggest thing in amateur boxing. And you got to remember, for years, some countries didn't have professional boxing. So the Olympics was their champion. The Olympic champion was the biggest champions of their country. And to have these guys to competing and not being treated fairly was an awful situation. So I'm so glad that Umar stepped up and become the president of AIBA, and that Umar's taking it by the horns and doing what he can to help fix the situation. Because without this being fixed, the integrity of our sport, which starts at the youth and goes up to the Olympics and on to the professionals, if it's ruined at the bottom, it'll never make it to the top. That's why it's on such a decline lately. So to have someone come in and start pushing it back upward means everything in the world to me. I'm always in on something like this. Whether I get my justice or not, I'm still fighting for the justice of those to come behind me. It's not all about just me. I don't want to see this happen to nobody ever again, because I know that feeling. That is a feeling that never has been digested in my stomach, never been digested in my heart. To this day, I still feel like that was yesterday, because I was the youngest kid on my team, 19 years old, gave 9 years of my life to make it to the Olympics and to win a gold medal, and to have it stolen from me at the end was horrific. So if I can do anything or be a part of any organization that can guarantee that this will never happen again to another kid, you know, Roy Jones Jr. is in 1,000%, not 100, 1,000%. So I thank you all again for having me here. I thank Umar for inviting me. I thank AIBA for making me a part of their team. I look forward to the changes that we're going to make in boxing, amateur boxing, and professional boxing. And I think this is a great opportunity, so thank you all for having me.
Thank you very much for those wise words of experience. Mr. President, what exactly is AIBA going to do to ensure that we do have fair fighting in the future?
Of course, from my side, I will just repeat what I have already said many times. For me, refereeing, it is a major crime when it is not fair. Say, we've got a good fighter. People invest 5 to 10 years of their lives into this sport. And then a group of crooked people, they just ruin his career, his life. So it's about doing things right, like building planes. If you did something wrong in building a plane, the plane will crash. I don't want this to happen in boxing. Sports functionaries, we have our own rules and we must abide by them. I was elected president for me to start communicating with all involved parties in order to create such an environment that nobody else would ever be in a position to violate those rules. It would be a major crime to crush the life of a fighter. You can only understand. I used to be a boxer, and I do remember that people can be achievers. They can yield good results, and you need to know this. You must stop this crooked reference. That's why we are getting our colleagues, boxers, who know from inside what we have to do. AIBA, again, is a family. We will be working together with people who know something about boxing. They spend their whole life in boxing. So in order for us to go forward, to have a vision, so to me, one of the most important issues as of today, it's referees. We need to get independent experts to have a look. It's not about, okay, so sometimes people just approach me and say, come on, forget about the past. Forget about what happened. No, I said, no, I must understand why it happened. Because nobody has given us the names, and I want these names to be voiced. Why we had problems. We need to name specific people. Yes, it was a wrongdoing. We have to do away with this mistake. We have to do away with people. We don't want them to be with us. And I'm talking about the whole group. Yes, we have to do away with this group and move forward. Because boxing is one of the most popular sports. It's something people love to watch, and I listened to all kinds of recommendations. It's not about me taking the decisions. If we take a decision, it's a family decision. So we have chosen a person who knows something about investigating. I'm sure that this person will be in a position to deliver a fair investigation. I'm talking about Mr. McLaren. I think that as far as refereeing is concerned, and not only this, we're not just talking about Olympic Games of 2016. It's not only about that. In Dubai, we had an Asia tournament, and there, again, there were allegations of some wrongdoing in this area. So we will, in the future, get involved, authoritative, well-known, well-established, independent experts to help us to cleanse our sport. I would like to say that never, nobody, I personally will never let it happen again to crush the lives of boxers. I know all this from inside. I know what I'm talking about. I think now it's good timing for us to talk about our future investigation, to thank Mr. McLaren for what he has already done. He started his job. So we're looking forward to getting his final results.
And I do believe that we could actually go across by video link to Professor Richard McLaren. Hello. We just seem to have a challenge with the volume. We can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can. Say, okay. We've just, yes, I'd just like to give you the floor for 3 or 4 minutes to explain to us what your mandate is, your 2 mandates are, and how you hope that will shed light on a clearer, fairer future.
Well, thank you. And first, I'd like to start off by thanking the President for inviting me to do this particular project. And at the outset, I'd like to say that and stress that I would not have taken the project on unless I was granted, excuse me, full independence for our investigation. The leadership of AIBA has seen fit to permit my team the freedom to follow the intelligence wherever it may lead, and to follow any and all the details and leads that we get. Let me be very clear, our work will not be constrained by AIBA officials. McLaren Global Sports Solution and its investigative team is fully independent. Our track record in other matters demonstrates that, and we also have the right in this particular investigation to publish our work in full. Our terms of reference are broad, and they cover much more than just the refereeing and judging at Rio. Now, we are aware of the fact that there is a long history leading up to Rio. That history will not be overlooked in our investigation. Whatever the problems may be, they will be put in proper context. I'm also aware that previous investigations may not have been fully independent. Again, let me stress, McLaren Global Sports Solutions, MGSS for short, is fully independent. We have been assured of the full cooperation of the current AIBA leadership. And I can confirm to all of you that while we have only been working on this project since June 10th, we have received to date excellent cooperation with AIBA, including access to their electronic information database, along with satisfying document and other requests that we have made. What's our job? It's to uncover AIBA and find out what the truth is and help it to engage in the difficult process of self-reform. The outcome of this reform will be that athletes who participate in boxing going forward can be assured that their results are fairly refereed and judged, something that Roy was giving his reaction to just a few moments ago. They also want to know that their international federation is beyond reproach. Again, a point that I underscore in Ray's remarks. I would hope that athletes who have participated in boxing in the past competitions will be consoled and have peace of mind as a result of our investigation. The investigation itself is in 2 parts. Stage 1, as we've called it, will be to look to what happened leading up to and at the Rio Olympic Games in 2016 and its aftermath. But as I said earlier, you can't look at just that. You have to put all of that in the context of what went before, and that will be done. The information gained will enable a sport to reform the process of refereeing and judging so it has complete integrity. To accomplish that, we need to understand what went wrong in its full context so that remedies can be made. To be precise, we will investigate the activity of all AIBA individuals involved in the Rio Olympics to establish whether there has been corruption or manipulation of sporting results, identify the responsible persons, and recommend to AIBA the appropriate course of action. So that's stage one. Stage two of the investigation, planned for later this year, will focus on the activity of individuals involved in the management of AIBA during the time period from approximately 2006 to the present to establish whether there have been acts of corruption, violation of the sports policies or lack thereof, manipulation of sporting results or of results of elections of AIBA officials, mismanagement of AIBA funds. We intend to identify the responsible persons and recommend the appropriate course of action. The goal here throughout stage one and stage two is to put some finality to the allegations that have plagued boxing for decades by putting everything in the public domain and putting the past behind us. I'm working with a team of professionals from many disciplines who have decades of experience in investigating high-profile sports corruption. Leading the investigation team will be Martin Dubby of Herod and Associates. Martin and I have worked together since the initial investigations of World Athletics and its Russian member through the Sochi doping investigation and the Moscow laboratory director's whistleblowing information. We more recently examined the International Weightlifting Federation financial fraud investigation, as well as other investigation projects. The team is in place and it's been working flat out since mid-June. We are confident that we will be in a position to provide AIBA with a report on the first phase of this investigation by the end of August. In the past, we have always had assistance from sport investigative journalists. One feature of this current investigation is the significant assistance we have from various other investigators of the past. I'd like to close my remarks with a call for action. All those involved in the sport of boxing who are listening today, it is time to speak up and speak out. If you have seen or know something, or believe you have been the victim of unjust refereeing or any other actions, please let us know. You can contact us through McLaren Global Sport Solution Inc. website and provide information in confidence and independent from anyone other than my investigation team. We have set up email and other contacts. You'll find them on the MGSS website. I also want to reassure anybody who is coming forward that we will receive your information in complete confidentiality, and that will be guaranteed to you in perpetuity. Our goal here is to return integrity and fairness to your sport, and we cannot do it without your help, those of you that know something about what's gone on with the past. That's a brief overview of the investigation and where we're at. And thank you, Mr. President, for giving us the opportunity to assist you in this way.
Thank you very, very much, Professor McLaren, for those words. Just going back to yourself, Mr. President, how will you make sure that the AIBA family go along with this 100% open?
I'd like to call on the entire boxing community to help this investigation. If you believe that your information will help us to investigate something that happened in the past, share this information with us, or rather with Professor McLaren, so that we could obtain reliable information. And AIBA is prepared to cooperate 100% in this. And of course, a correct assessment of the past is just one first step. We need to think about the present and about our future. We need to think how we should and can become better. We've solved many problems already, problems regarding financing and governance. We are undertaking major reforms. We are engaging independent experts to ensure that the situation is correctly assessed. For instance, to become the president, I had to go through the entire process of legibility checks. And I would like to say that governance and refereeing are our priorities because we want AIBA to have a better future. We've enlisted the help of independent experts who have carried out a reform in governance. We also enlisted the help of the anti-doping agency, WADA. They have been very professional. We also entrusted that team with conducting a reform in AIBA and help it reform its administrative system. We've turned to Ulrich Hansen. We know that he's highly professional, and it's a pleasure to work with him. We are always open to independent help. This is something we badly need today. We need to enlist the help of great professionals because we cannot do it on our own.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And to go into a few more details, we do have with us on the platform Professor Ulrich Huss, an independent government expert. Please give us your thoughts, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for providing the floor for me. My name is Ulrich Huss. I'm a professor at law at the University of Zurich, and sports law, sports governance are the fields I'm working in. I have done similar projects in the past. I've worked for international cycling to investigate governance reforms. I did the same thing for the World Anti-Doping Agency, and it's a great pleasure and also honor to be accompanying and assisting AIBA in its way forward on governance reform. I will be chairing a governance group that is consisting of 5 people. So we have Ms. Scherer from MS International Law, we have Ms. Rombach from Klinkert Rechtsanwälte, we have Mr. Stefan Netzler from Times Attorney, and we have Mr. Kahlert from Martin's Attorneys. They're all experts in their field, looking very much forward working with them. And our goal will be to enable AIBA to meet the highest benchmarks in governance. That is our goal. Now, at the center of all this will be the IPACs. These are the standards that have been developed by the International Partnership Against Corruption in Sport. And this will be more or less the benchmark that we're working with. We are aware that there are other benchmarks out there. We'll have a close look which ones to apply, but our starting point will be the IPACs. What we'll be concentrating on will be issues like transparency, integrity, democracy, development and solidarity, and checks and balances. The governance reform group will do so in complete independence. We will not take any directions from anybody, but we will look into all these matters and develop appropriate guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to having the results of this. We're now going to have a quick word from the Secretary General, Istvan Kovac, known to the world as Coco. Coco, as a new boy here and a very successful ex-athlete, how much are you looking forward to working with this group?
thank you for your question, but firstly I want to say thank you for Mr. McLaren and Mr. Huss to help us to figure out what has happened in the past, but we also very hard working about the future, because the boxing have to change. If I telling you we are, that's not means Umar and me or just the AIBA office, but we're talking about more than 11 million boxers around the world, and more than 100,000 trainers around the world, and spectators and officials and everybody ready to change the sports, because we already knows we are in the historical situation, and we want to save our sports for the future. As you know from the Roy story, this is something that the boxers have been waiting long to see, and I'm excited to say that the AIBA, we have taken a lot of steps to make it happen. We already done a lot of very important steps. I just 3 months ago get the amazing opportunity and elected as a Secretary General, but my entire life was in the ring and around the ring. I was boxer 20 years, so I served the boxing 20 years in the ring and another 20 years near to the ring, next to the ring, which is more than a half a lifetime. So because of this, I know very well the change we have made in the past few months are huge steps in the right direction for boxing. Thanks for the President and also for our sponsors, we reached the level of financial stability that we have never, ever has before in the 75-year history of AIBA. We have started the financial support program, which is a very important development programs. We are helping and supporting every project by the National Federation and also by the confederations. This unique program provides diverse financial support for sport development, education, which is also very important, equipment purchasing and organizing competitions, trainings camp, buying gloves, rings, etc., what they need to develop our beautiful sports. Everything is done in a fully transparent way, which is also very, very important. So all of our measures can be found on our website. Our work is like an open book for everybody. And our duty is very simple. I think our president is summarized very clearly. In the near future, if the young kids step into the ring, then he or she have to be sure the result will be fair, which is, that's the base, that's the fundamental of our sports. And we're talking about the clear sports, so we're also very proud to announce the boxing is one of the clearest sports in the doping situation. So through our collaboration with the ITA, we have made excellent progress towards our goal to making boxing absolute doping-free sports. We have introduced new rules and regulation. Let me just I know it's quite boring, but it's a huge big step for us, for the boxers. Believe me, it's an amazing moment in our entire history, because we made a lot of change in the scoring system, the boat review, for example, the open scoring, and also we want to create a brand new scoring system. We want to create a brand new and very fair world ranking system. We also created and doing a prize money championship, and not just the male, also for the female boxers receive the prize money after the winning AIBA titles. We make a lot of courses for the RNGs and for the ITOs also. New examination progress is started just right now, and we are going to renew every certification. That means in the nearly future, everybody who is stepping into the ring or sitting near to the table have to be well qualified, high qualified officials, and then we will be quite sure then the result will be also fair. And of course, we continue to provide our full support for the boxing task force, and we are looking forward to seeing the Olympic events unfold under their organization. And of course, we will learn from the work of the IOC, and then if it's helpful for us, then we will apply this knowledge in the future. We also strongly believe that there must be no discrimination in our sports on the basis of gender, sexuality, religion, race, or any other grounds. We will fight for it every day. Like I mentioned you, by the boxing, the female or male boxers, it doesn't matter. They receive the same prize money. They receive the same, they are equal. So we don't make any change, and we don't make any difference between the male or female, for example. We have made a good progress, but we also know very well that there is more to be done. We work every day to support millions of young boxers to make their dreams come true. So thank you for your attention. Please support us in the future. And yeah, I truly believe we are stronger than yesterday. Of course, if you help us, we will even stronger than yesterday.
Thank you very much, Kuko. We're now going to hear a personal story. Boxing, as we've heard and we know, should be open to absolutely everybody. So I'd like to welcome Zaina Nasser, German boxing champion. Please tell us your story.
Sorry, again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and it's an honor for me to speak to you here today, and many thanks to the President, Umar Kremlev, and the AIBA, and all those I was able to meet during my competitions. I started boxing when I was 13 years old. I was the only Muslim girl wearing a hijab in my boxing club. In 2019, AIBA changed the competition regulations so that I can also compete internationally with a long shirt, with a long pants, and with my hijab. Before that, I wasn't allowed to box abroad. Now, the requirement is the same, and it's important to qualify by the performance. This international experience is so important to get better, and that's my goal. Today, I can take part in the European and the World Championship. I owe all of this to reforms of the AIBA and the representatives of all countries, and for sure the German Association. This rule change is a huge step forward for women in the Muslim regions to practice sports that have historically been known as a male domain. I get a lot of messages every day from girls who want to start boxing. Above all, many parents are against it. There is a hurdle to overcome that will make it easier for us to get started and get even more girls and boys to learn more about the sport. Open doors and educate more coaches. For me, the training impressed me the most and taught me a lot of other qualities beside my fitness. Respect, discipline, and controlling my emotions are some of them. Boxing is definitely also for women, and that's why I stand up for it. Get more self-confident through sport. Create role models. We need to be more visible in the media. We all are responsible for a change. There is still a lot to do, and I know that boxing is back on the right track. So thank you again for being there and for the chance to speak here for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, coming directly from your heart. We'd like to now have a bit of a wrap-up, a few final words from Mr. President, please, on how you overall see things going forward.
Спасибо, Заина.
Thank you very much, Zaina. As you can see, we have an excellent winning team. We have on board Professor McLaren. We have on board Professor Huss. In order for us to be able to get them involved, these are independent, autonomous people, and we need their help in our administrative efforts. So we needed political will. We needed to review our philosophy. So we do have our philosophy. We do have our vision. We do have resources that enable us to hire the best of the best, the cream of the cream. So if you want to be the best, you need to have as a helper only the best people. As I said, I promised that in 6 months we dwell upon our problems and we start our reforms. And we managed to do this. We're quite happy about that. This was my promise made to boxers. That was about confidence. The boxing family invested into me. So we are united. And we are working on these commitments. And I am sure we will move forward. It's very good not to be alone when you're marching, when you have next to you Olympic champions. Look at the Secretary General. It's a world champion. It's an Olympics champion. It's Roy Jones. He did everything in boxing. So I would like from my side to thank you, Camarelli, for his results. You know, thanks to these guys, we have boxing as sports. Thanks to them, we are able to get sponsors. Thanks to them, we got Gazprom on board, because they show that grassroots movement, that's the basis. When we have the grassroots, the mass sports, we show that boxing is here to stay and to become one of the most popular sports. I would say that even now it's a flagship of martial arts, but still, there is one thing we have to work on: integrity. Integrity again. From my side, I just would like to say that all kinds of reforms we are into, whatever we do to develop boxing today, we work with UNESCO, with the UN in order to help them to develop sports all over the world. We are moving forward our agenda. We can see that every single country needs sports, especially today with COVID around us. We can understand how it is important to have sports to help us to find a way out. This is a unique chance for every nation to have healthy future generations. We have to move forward. What boxing is about? Boxing is something that can change life of any person for the better.
Thank you very much.
Those who are with us, they are already achievers and winners. One more thing. I am glad to see that I would like to ask my colleague, the boxer, to address us. Whatever we get, whatever we earn, that will be the property of the boxer community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have a couple more very important guests to speak to. The first one is going to be Mary Com, who's in India. So we've had to record a message about an hour ago, and I'd like us to listen to the message of 6 times AIBA world champion, Mary Com.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be joining you here today. My name is Mary Com, and as you know, I am an active boxer, and I'm also the chairperson of the AIBA Champions and Veterans Committee. This has allowed me to have a unique insight into the experience of the athlete and also the administrators. I do think it is important to give the athlete a bigger voice, and I think AIBA is doing that today. How often do you see active athletes being given a voice on occasion like this. I will say not enough. You know, boxing is an accessible sport. It is a universal sport. You are really don't need much to practice it. But access to a sport is not just about how expensive the facilities are, how expensive the shoes are. It is also a question for society. In my country, young women often have to fight too hard just to access sport. And that is clearly still the case into many countries around the world. But I think I have shown, and so many women boxers have shown, that we deserve an equal opportunity. That we will fight for this opportunity. So I am grateful that AIBA is supporting us. Through boxing, we can help teach society about equality, about fairness. We can inspire, we can bring hope. But we can only do this if we lead by example. Throughout my life, I have tried to lead by example. This leadership is not just a job for individual. It is a job for organization like AIBA too. For too long, AIBA has not set a good example. And I must tell you, as an athlete and as a champion, I am so happy to see that changing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much for that very interesting message there. And finally, from the table, we're going to speak to double world champion Roberto Camarelli.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today, to be able to hear President Kremlev ideas. I have seen how much he loves boxing by training with him in Italy. For me, boxing needs to attract its audience to the high-level competition. I saw at the Under-22 European Championship how much the new AIBA invests in these events for give a dream to the young generation. I am proud to make a contribution, my contribution, to the groove of a new AIBA, because I am impressed with the direction AIBA is going. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'd just like to thank all the speakers for giving us really heartfelt messages. Now's the time that we need to go over to the journalists to ask some questions. The way we need to coordinate it is fairly straightforward. We do have some important media here in the room. We also have some important media online. So what we've decided to do is, those of you online, we do have an online moderator, John. Can you turn your cameras on so John can see you, please, those journalists? And the journalists here, we're going to take 4 or 5 questions from the room, and then we're going to go on to the online. So I just need to put my glasses on so I can see you. And if you'd, as a journalist, if you'd please wait for the microphone to come to you. If you'd then name yourself and name your media, and keep the question short and concise and polite, please. Well, first, want to put your hand up there, sir.
Yes, thank you. Ludo Sainz, Notified, Panama. Mr. President, you have mentioned several times that AIBA is investing about $6 million in development, and there's a fund for that. I wonder how this is going to be distributed and what kind of programs actually are going to be implemented with this funding, this $6 million.
As of today, for this year, just for this year, we have around $7 million to help national federations. Today, every national federation is to send a request for the boxing development. They are to tell us what we can do to help them. So we are not going to channel all this money in one country. We will be taking into consideration the actual needs and requirements of national federations who sent us a request. That's for this year only. Next year, we will be investing more money into this. I'm leaving aside the 7 million. We are also have a system of distribution among confederations. AIBA will be involved in continental championships. We know that they have lots of problems in this area. That's why we are getting into it. We will be organizing this. We will be working on setting up the necessary conditions for athletes so that these events could be very well organized. So we're changing even the formats for these continental championships. We will be working on this even further.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to ask a question from the floor? Gentleman just behind, please, on the second row.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have a question for the President, Mr.
Could you just introduce yourself and your media, please?
Of course, I'm Frederick Besse from the newspaper Schweizer Soldat. I have a question regarding the major independent financial audit that you mentioned. You mentioned that there will be a financial audit by an independent person. My question is, when will AIBA announce this independent auditor?
As of today, we are working on getting on board one of the major auditing companies. I think in the nearest future we will be informing you about signing an agreement with one of majors in this area who will be involved in this external audit exercise.
Yes, please, gentlemen in front. Second row in the middle.
Hi, it's Ashish Sharma from Sport Intern. I suppose a question for the President and also for the Secretary General. You've talked a lot about the past damage that has been inflicted by previous people in charge at AIBA. How much damage, since you've taken over, have you seen this having in terms of an impact on young people taking up boxing as a sport? And how important is it to send that message out to the youngsters that it's a clean sport for them to become involved with in the future? Thank you.
As a matter of fact, there are too many people who suffered. I have visited in person every country. Why I go there? To see this actual damage. It is just huge. That's why we want to do away with this. We need dozens of millions of dollars in order to cover this damage. I think that it's not about 10 years, it's more than that. AIBA was just slipping down and down and down. So every time I come into a country, I have a plan. I want to see it by myself. There is only one solution. You need to talk to national federation. You need a customized solution. You need to talk to trainers and referees and trainers so that by the end of the year we could be there. Grassroots boxing, that's the most important thing.
In fact, we have three major plans. First is honest, fair judging, because we need to look at refereeing from bottom up when people are selected for national championships. That's what we'll have to look at, so that athletes can understand what kind of future they may have. They can realize this will be a social elevator, so to say, a lift, so that he or she will fight to become a better athlete, and nobody will stand in their way. This is our priority number one. Second is to involve the masses, to develop the sports on a massive scale. So in every country, box should become one of the 10 top disciplines. And number three is financial rewards for athletes. We'll all understand why this is important, because when an athlete starts their career, they're mostly people from low-income or medium-income families. They want to become champions. They want to become popular. To make our sport popular, to make people know about the sport, we need to tell children that they will not be left behind on the streets, that if they join this sport, they will start earning their living. And more than 2 million will be allocated for the World Championship and will increase the amounts. These three directions or pillars are intertwined. These are the core and should be the core of our activity.
Thank you very much. One final question from here before we go online, please.
Hello. Yes, Mike Rowbottom here for Inside the Games. A question for the President. You've had some significant markers for your progress.
The interpreters do not hear the speaker.
Hello? Can you hear now? Okay. There have been some significant markers. You can hear? I'll try this one. Is this okay? It's all right. Okay, sorry. Again, so 6 months, you've done some big things already. There are big markers in place. The question is, do you have a picture of where you want to be in another 6 months? And do you hope to have spoken to the IOC significantly in that period of time?
Yes, I do have a picture that we want to put a full stop to the past, as I said. And as I also said, we want to achieve 100% honest judging. We're already working on this. Refereeing will be transparent. There'll be live scoring. And when an athlete is boxing, they will realize that they can change the situation even in the third round. These rules will be made known, which also increase the number of weight categories, because we want more and more people to be involved in boxing, both men and women. And by the end of this year, we want to achieve this. And we also, by the end of this year, want to achieve the highest levels of our tournaments. And of course, we want to complete our reforms so that AIBA becomes one of the best federations in the world.
We're now going to go online. We'll be back here in a couple of minutes, but we're going to have 4 questions online. John, if you can hear me, it's all yours.
I can, although your microphone was fading out. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can very clearly.
Excellent. So thank you, everyone. We have a huge number of media online and also a number of other guests as well from the boxing community. Our first question is Eddie Goldman from No Holds Barred. Eddie, if you could unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Yes, I am. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. The question for President Kremlin and whoever else wants to answer. It wasn't that long ago that Gafir Rakimov was elected president of AIBA. He's been on the U.S. Treasury Department's sanctions list since 2012. How will you guarantee that something like this does not happen again, and that those in AIBA who facilitated this are no longer in the leadership? Thank you.
Мы для этого и привлекаем независимых,
That's why we shall conduct an independent investigation. And that is why we have engaged independent audit. We have an independent disciplinary commission. We have an independent ethics commission. We're changing the AIBA system. We are changing its constitution. We shall have another reform of the constitution in autumn. We don't want one single person to make decisions. All decisions should be coordinated and agreed with national federations, with boxers. We've created a champions council at AIBA involving all world championships who devoted their whole lives to boxing. We also involve coaches. We also have a veterans council, so that it would become impossible for one person to make decisions. And the most important thing today, when these investigations are over, the names of those involved, that is, in administration, in refereeing, and so on, will be announced, and there will be a tough decision taken to disqualify them for life, so that cannot touch any tournament or championship or anything at all.
Okay, thank you, President. Our next question actually comes from Poonam Mehra from the Press Trust of India. He's asked me to read the question out for the sake of time. Thank you, Poonam. His question is, when will the investigation into allegations of unfair judging in the recent Asian Championships be concluded? And does it involve complaints from multiple countries? And that question is directed at the Secretary General and, of course, President, if he wants to answer.
Да. Мы уже как чемпионат во время чемпионата.
During the championship, we have removed a number of persons. An investigation is underway, and Professor McLaren will include in his investigation the Asian Championship that was in Dubai. I'm speaking about refereeing here. So I think it will be completed in the near future. It all depends on the information that the investigative group will receive. We want this to be completed as soon as possible. We want to put a full stop to this, and those responsible should be severely. I shouldn't talk about punishment. I should rather say it should never touch boxing.
Okay, thank you, President. Our next question is Josh Peter at USA Today. Josh, if you could unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Great. for President Kremlev, what are the three most important steps that have been taken to ensure there will be fair refereeing and judging in Tokyo? And if possible, I was hoping that Roy could address his role in this process of addressing corruption, ensuring fairness with AIBA.
As for Tokyo, I cannot comment on this. I think that everything will go smoothly there because Japan is a strong boxing country, and I have no doubts everything will go well there. As for refereeing and AIBA, this I can comment on because I'm responsible for AIBA. First, reforms have been initiated already. After each championship, we have independent experts who assess referees. We draw lists of referees who have made many mistakes and so on. And the investigation that I mentioned will be completed. We'll have another list. So by the end of the year, we expect refereeing to be cleaned 100% from wrong refereeing and from people who break rules. And highly qualified people will help boxers and work as referees.
And for my part,
so thank you, President. We're going to have three more quick questions, Matt, before I pass back to you for questions in the room. The next question is to come from Duncan Mackay of Inside the Games. Duncan, unmute and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, President Kremlev. While you were Secretary General of the Russian Boxing Federation, you created a very vibrant boxing community. Is that something you believe that you can translate worldwide? And if so, how long do you feel it would take?
Sorry, Matt, before President answers, we also need to give Roy Jones a chance to answer the previous question. I forgot that. But shall we do Duncan's question first or shall we do Roy first? I apologize.
Let's go for Roy first and then we can catch up.
Yeah,
I'll do Duncan's question straight afterwards. Roy.
Yeah, he was asking what was my role. And I said, I think that my job is to go side by side with my brother here and to do everything to help this AIBA committee do things that are positive and making amateur boxing better, because boxing starts at the grassroots. Not many guys who make it to the professionals do it without having an amateur career. So if we start at the amateur boxing level and clean that up, then hopefully that can filter up to the professional level and help clean that up. So my goal is to walk side by side with this or with AIBA, and in whatever capacity that I need to work with AIBA to make sure we try to focus on fairness and knowing that people are going to get just decisions, just treatment when they go into a boxing ring.
Thank you, Roy, and apologies for cutting you short. So we're back to you, Duncan. Maybe just a very quick reprise of your question for President again, just in case. Or can President remember?
Yes, I do remember the question. This is what I want to say. When I went to the elections, I said I would be able to settle the problem in half a year. Why? Because when I became the Secretary General of the Russian Boxing Federation, I saw the same problem. There was a major problem in refereeing, and the federation had debts. The governance was awful. That required change. And when I was entrusted by boxers to manage the profession, the first thing I did, I enlisted boxers in administration. I wanted them to be involved in the reform, and in a very short time, in 6 months, we've managed to settle all the problems of the federation, because I know this from the inside, and that was why I was confident, because I know things from the inside. I know what is happening in refereeing, I know what is happening with finances. Well, generally, boxing shouldn't have any financial problems because it's the most popular sport. What is needed is to act honestly, openly. That's all it takes. And then you'll have sponsors, and then boxers will take part in competitions, and fans will come and love the sport, and children would come and to take this sport. You have to be honest when you do your job. I boxed myself, and I had this experience of reform. I have extensive experience, and I see problems in AIBA. And plus, we have involved a lot of independent actors, the best people. We have the best athletes in AIBA working together with us. We'll solve this major task. And we managed to do this within a short time.
Yes, thank you, President. And we have a question now, just 2 more online before we go back to you, Matt, and then we probably have time for 2 each. I would say the next question is coming from Ewan Cunningham at Global Data, but he has microphone issues at his end, so he's asked me to ask you the question directly. And it is, can you please give an update on the efforts AIBA is undertaking to regain control of boxing in time for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games? Are you confident, is AIBA confident, these conversations with the IOC will progress, will make progress?
Let me say, let me speak just for AIBA. The recommendations produced by IOC, they'll be implemented by the end of this year. And I'm responsible for this as president of AIBA. And our team, the boxers, will be able to achieve it because we want AIBA to be the best. I think this decision was taken by IOC, but if they remove us, but our federation becomes one of the best, there'll be no reason to exclude us. I see no reason for being excluded because you have just to look at how the boxing is developing. We've completed the reforms, we've put a full stop to the past, but the rest is to be decided by IOC. What's important? The most important thing is to interact with them.
Okay, thank you very much, President. Last question from online before we do a couple more in each side. And that is from Declan Hill, although Declan, you have warned me that you have a lot of background noise. Let's see how we get on. Declan.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My question for the President is that we've spoken a lot this morning, we've heard a lot this morning about potential fixing and corruption at the 2016 Olympics in Rio. How far back does the allegations of similar problems go? Does it go back to the 2012 Olympics? Does it go back to 2008? Where can we go back and think that there was honest boxing, and when did corruption come into the sport?
So, Declan, just sorry, you're a famous author in the whole area of match fixing, if I recall. I have a few of your books on my shelf.
Thank you, John. Yes.
You're also a bona fide journalist. Sorry, I forgot to ask you to give your title. President?
To put a full stop to the past, how far into the past do we have to delve to close the page and not to recall it again, to achieve justice and to eliminate wrongful judging. If we need to delve further into the past, we'll do this. But most importantly, we'll provide the independent experts with all data. Our major task is to finalize this and start a fresh page, because I think, it's my personal opinion, I think that boxing is a flagship sport.
Thank you very much for the online questions. Going to go back to the floor now. Gentleman with the microphone.
Good evening all, the panel and the floor. Daniel Armstrong, RT Sport. I have two questions. The first one's to President Umar Kurumlyov. Вопрос будет задан на русском языке.
I will ask my question in Russian.
Umar Nazarovich, вы уже с тех пор, как вы стали президентом, совершили очень много важных
have done a lot since you became the president, and you are on the right path to get AIBA back. So, you have got Canadian independent experts involved. Is it the most important thing? Do you think this is the most important step when it comes to fighting corruption at this stage? The most important thing, after all, refereeing is not number one. Fair refereeing is number one, and we want to do it quickly by the end of this year. That's why we are ready to get the information. If you have any information, please share it with us. If there are any violations in terms of administration,
And the second
we
question
will
is to Roy.
do.
Roy, when you were talking about the 88 Seoul Olympic Games gold medal match, it seemed like those emotions were coming from not a place of bitterness, not a place of anger, but a really raw place of, from that 19-year-old kid who was really dealt an unjust hand in that match. How much would your work now that is dedicated to making sure that doesn't happen to the future generations, to those future 19-year-olds, would that go to alleviating those emotions that you felt back then that are still evidently very, very raw?
All of my efforts are to make sure that that doesn't happen to another kid or another 19-year-old or anybody. Because for me, I think the damage was done. It was cool. It'll be like that forever. I mean, even if I get my gold medal, it's still not like getting it right there at that ceremony, listening to your national anthem being played, knowing that you sacrificed 9 years of your life. And at the end of that 9-year sacrifice, you get rewarded for your efforts. To have that stripped away from you is very devastating. And that's a feeling that is very hard to overcome. And no matter how hard I try, anytime I get back on the subject, it takes me right back to that spot because it's a very sour spot. So my reason for getting involved is to try to help the president alleviate things that would take somebody back down that road. I never want to see another person, not just a kid, another person, male nor female, go down that same road, because not only does it hurt the individual, it hurts our sport just as bad.
Yes, please, gentleman with your hand up. Mike, not yet, because you've already asked a question, but gentleman there with your hand up, please.
Hi, I'm Greg from Eurosport. I was meaning to ask the president, we talked a lot about how you're trying to reform AIBA right now and in the short, medium term, but what about long term? Do you have like a vision for the sport and amateur boxing in 10 years?
As I have already said, to me, personally, it's If there is one important thing, is to have a situation when 10 years after we can't get back. We don't want to get this reversal movement. That's for one. For two is to have grassroots development. We want that all those almost 200, if not more, countries have their own system. And then number three, when boxers will be earning millions of dollars, will be able to support their families. That's what we want to have in 10 years. We want them to make money. To ensure their own future, to ensure the future of their families. We want boxing to become a social lift. We want people to understand that if you do get involved, you can help your relatives, you can help your kids, you can help other athletes.
John, if you'd like to take sorry, we just have a quick, Coco would like to add a point from the floor.
I'm sorry, I just want to make a short note regarding the question of the Eurosport. So the President also mentioned in the previous speech, we have a lot of commissions, and then our commission's working very hard, like the competition committee, the RNG committee, the coach committee, and they also sending a lot of suggestions of the future, not just the nearly future, but also in the, probably in the next 4 or 5 years. We want to create a completely different system of the boxing. We want to create a completely different ranking system, etc. So this will be, is not a surprise, but that will be a huge, big difference between the past area and the new area, because as the President also mentioned, the boxer deserved. And this is one of the best, or maybe the best sports of the world, and we want to put him not back in the same level, we want to put higher level than used to be. Thank you.
John, do you have some more questions lined up online?
The people who told us at the beginning they were going to ask, that we've got around the rings, I think might have wanted to ask a question, but Brian, I've not received anything from you, so I'm going to take that as a no, unless you send me a direct message now, please.
Just to fill in, because we do have Mike Rowbottom who has a second question, so we can go straight to the floor. Thank you.
Sorry, just before you go, the question has come through from James Lowe. James Lowe at, if you could unmute James Lowe, please, at Transmedia.
Yes. Well, the question is for the legendary Roy Jones Jr. Roy, I know that you are really into this whole keeping the sport clean. Do you think that we'll ever get to the point where we've gotten rid of all of the corruption of boxing, or is that just something we're just stuck with, my friend?
Well, it's kind of hard to say about all the corruption of boxing because, like you just said, a lot of people want to make millions of dollars in the end of their careers to support their families. And anytime that there's millions of dollars involved, you're going to find some corruption. So it's going to be very difficult to have a perfect world. However, what we can do is on this amateur level, we can start out trying to make this as perfect as we can make it before they start making money. Hopefully that will build integrity in the sport and with those who are participating in the sport to make them want to be more fair and to be more honest with their ongoing futures. And by the time it hits the top level, it'll get 85 to 90% clean so that we don't have so much corruption. So my thing is, by starting at the grassroots, which is the amateur level, which is what AIBA is doing, that will only grow up into the mainstream or to the professional area and help clean everything up by way of a process. So I'm thinking that if you start at the bottom, it'll get to the top.
Okay, thank you, Roy. And final question from us online, Matt, is from Brian Pinelli at Around the Rings.
Thank you, John. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah. Question for the President or Secretary General. Obviously, a lot to clean up. Another significant issue that I haven't heard addressed is CTE. Obviously, it affects so many contact sports these days, the NFL, the NHL in the United States, others, international ice hockey. How much funding, how much time and effort is going toward studying, learning more about CTE, and ultimately preventing this from affecting the future of young boxers, because obviously boxing remains a violent sport. Thank you.
Я думаю, на этот вопрос ответит наш.
I think that the Secretary General would be in a position to answer this question. Microphone for the Secretary General.
I'm not sure I am involved in this deeply in the last 3 months, but of course we will do our best in the near future to help the kids for the future. But I pass back the question to the President, because he probably knows way better our future in this case.
Не, я думаю, что касается
Let me put it this way. There are national federations, and we will be helping them. As to other federations who would like to get involved, actually, in every single country, they have a federation. As Roy Jones said, the AIBA is the cornerstone, the starting point of boxing. AIBA will be defining the future of these sports.
Thank you. We'll go to Mike. You've been waiting patiently, please.
Thank you. It's a question for Roy. When you were on the podium in Seoul, your opponent, this Korean opponent, raised your hand to show that he believed that you had won. How important was that to you, and how much of a comfort was that to you, if any, down the years?
That's part of that fairness that I'm talking about, that I'm hoping that will grow up from AIBA and grow up into the professional ranks, because when somebody knows in their heart that there has been a misjudged situation, they can't help but to express it. And he knew that I had been dealt a bad decision. So that was his way of expressing that he didn't do it, it wasn't his fault. He just was a victim of the same situation that I was a victim of. Because they robbed it and gave it to him, he's in his country who values medals and who that they get different perks in life for getting a gold medal. So he can't give that back. That would ruin his life in his own country. And I understood that. But by him raising my hand, that was his way of showing me that he knew that I deserved that gold medal. And that meant more than anything. And for the other guy's question about the CTE or what he was talking about, I did hear that, and I haven't gotten that close to the organization enough to make allegations about what they're going to do about it. But that is something that I do have a lot of concerns about as well, because that's why I think it's important that as amateur boxers, we stick with the headgear, because the headgear will help prolong those careers as they go on and become better professional boxers. So it's things like that that we all have to talk about as a collective group to address those issues, because those are things that have to be taken into consideration.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've had some really, really good questions. I'm sure there's hundreds of more that could be said, but unfortunately we need to draw this press conference to an end. A huge thank you to all the journalists who've followed and written in and asked questions. Thank you very much appreciated. And of course, a huge thank you to the distinguished guests, all champions. And I think from us, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch very shortly. That's a wrap.